what are the other sources of data? What are the other signals that you can get that someone would be a good candidate for a financial product are not yet being thought of as of yet. So I think one of the things that I'm also thinking about in the context of what we're doing at Argyle is what other signals that are trustworthy can we be bringing into the fold, especially on the employment and income verification area. But when you think about the massive world of how decisions on financial systems get done, there's a lot of other data points that you can be looking at that are not employment or income that could help you get a better perspective on whether a person is going to be able to repay a loan or whether there are other options that you can explore with them and also help them. I think the other piece that there's a big opportunity for financial institutions is like, how do you partner at a more human scale with your, maybe they're not your client right now, but how are you helping them eventually become one? I think it's almost like
playing the long game a little bit. Right? As opposed to wanting, I mean, that's like our universe, right? Our world in any, whether you're in fintech or you're a bank or whatever capacity, you know, it's sometimes alarming to me that we're just still seeing so much of these like old world tactics or old school tactics of like wanting to kind of gotcha people into something. It's wild to me. Those people do not care about behavioral finance, obviously, right? Like those products don't care about any of that. They didn't think of it at all. But, you know, to reduce a human experience to a couple of data points when it really is like you get a pretty blurry picture of who someone is. When the reality is, it's like, I mean, how many data points can one human's experience? It's thousands and thousands and thousands of it, right? I mean, that's, how do you think about just like incorporating those behavioral finance elements into Argyle's, you know, product in terms of like every step of the way now that I know for context for the listeners, you're only about a month in, right? So we're still
month and a half.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're still fairly new. I mean, what is that like? How does kind of wanting to implement more of the things that you care about this early on, how does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, right now I don't think it's in the immediate future for Argyle, but I can give you an example of something that's a little bit smaller scale, but it's the beginning of that, right? Like right now, we not only access payroll providers like your traditional ADP, Workday, et cetera. We're also able to get information from gig platforms, which is like another form of income that typically is not there. So that's another signal that we're adding to that. I think if we were to do more of the behavioral piece, you would want to think about being able to retrieve data of, for example, how have they paid other loans across different banks. You'd be thinking about other aspects of maybe even how they spend their money. I think how people spend their money is also something that you typically see of more of a, what is the income? But I think the spending part would be really interesting to also look at in a way that allows you to see a fuller financial picture. And I'm sure that that's something that is worth solving. I don't think it's in like the critical path for Argyle right now, but it's something that I'm very curious to continue thinking also individually, because I think there's so much to think about when you're thinking just about those models and about how people make decisions with their money. So that's how we think about it. But it's such a complex thing, and this is a thing that's been very astounding to me about fintech. It's how you can go very deep in both like the data aspect and the people aspect and the technology aspect on seemingly small transactions, and the nuance and the thought that each one of those interactions need to include to be designed well, to actually make a change. Because there's been companies that share data or sell data or whatever for hundreds of years, but like, are we really making a dent on this if we're not thinking about how all of the package looks together with the product, with the service, and also thinking about all of the players? Argyle, for example, doesn't get paid by the end user, but I think it's super important for us to be able to think about how the borrower experiences all of this process so that they return to a bank that is favoring the development of new technology that makes the experience better. And we have this like virtuous cycle of improvements and continuous partnering on making all of this better, as opposed to they're all different parties that are trying to have the minimum interaction with each other and mistrusting each other.
That's like how business, and especially even ours, has worked for some time. I'm still going to events and we have to talk through, collaboration, not competition. We have to talk about partnerships. We have to talk about, how does a fintech partner with a bank properly and it not feel like what you just said, like, oh yeah, we're partners, but are we really frenemies? Are we really just like, are we actually working together and creating more of these win-win, and win, including the consumer, right, cycles. But I think that's why it's also so important for someone like yourself to be in these leadership positions, to be leading product and in these fintech companies, because you're coming in with this fresh perspective. I mean, I can't even tell you how many women will message me or DM me saying, I want to help, I want to be in the fintech space, but I don't have this certain experience. I've never been in fintech. And I'm like, none of us have. Come on it. Like, not really. And some of us have. But like, it's being open to coming in with this fresh perspective and saying, hey, like, I know that there's this playbook of how to do something in this industry. I don't really care. I want to create our own playbook. And this is how we're going to, be profitable in our own right. We're going to do it by creating a virtuous cycle of helping people and being cognizant of, maybe I am a B2B company, but I do need to be paying attention to what the end consumer wants and cares about, because that's ultimately who I'm serving, basically, regardless of if you're immediately working with the business first. But not everyone thinks like this.
Yeah, no, and I think I want to say like a very heavy +1 to how much women think that they need to know everything about something before deciding to dive into that or feeling that they can contribute on something.
Right.
I think that's something that it's taken me a while to get off my system, because it's a thing that it's very normal that we're socialized for that. But oh my God, women out there, you do not need to know everything about a topic to have a productive opinion, to be able to make change.
Yes.
And all you need to do is really be curious, interested, and be able to approach it from a curiosity perspective. I think sometimes setting direction on something is not knowing all of the answers, but really knowing how to ask the right questions. And I think someone that hasn't seen something before is able to more likely ask new questions that haven't been asked. So the contributions that you can make to a space, even if you're not an expert, is great. I think as long as you're modulated to understand, like, this is not an area of expertise and I need help on this, you can be very successful. But I really want to underscore the point that every single thing that I've personally done in my life, I've jumped between 3 different industries. I started in retail. I did file storage for a while that I knew nothing about. Then I did that for 7 years, and I moved to logistics, cross-border logistics, completely different.
Oh my gosh.
And now I'm in fintech. And what I can tell you is you can learn very quickly the basics of an industry, but the experience that you bring of being able to ask questions or having experienced different things is incredibly valuable. And I think I encourage every person out there to really not set the bar of like, I need to know everything to apply for this job or to be valuable, but really think about what is a unique and differentiated experience that can contribute on a perspective to make something better.
Yeah.